July 29th, 2022 recap. Let's do it. All right, going into the weekend, two big stories that are going to dominate everything between Democrats and Republicans. The first is the fallout for not passing the PACT Act, and in fact, the Republicans switching on this, having once voted for it in the past and overwhelmingly voting to pass, but now switching because they're upset about what happened earlier this week with the Democrats pulling kind of an end around on them and outmaneuvering them with some other legislation. The PACT Act is the act that provides health care for veterans that have served overseas, been exposed to things like defoliants, burn pits, other things that they came home very, very sick from, and they have not allocated enough resources to be able to provide ongoing health care for this group of veterans. Leading the public charge for this has been comedian Jon Stewart, who's been out on all sorts of news networks, including Fox and OAN, talking about what's been going on and essentially dissecting the Republican argument against the PACT Act that has evolved since the last time they voted on it. The last time there was a vote, it overwhelmingly passed, but the argument now has been that the Democrats added language to the bill that added, quote unquote, a slush fund of funding that is unaccountable and is something that the government just can't allow because of fiscal conservatism that would be there. The problem is that's a lie, and it's an easily disprovable lie. No language has been altered in that bill, and so it's just simply sour grapes for what happened earlier this week. And again, I don't quite understand the logic of it because it is overwhelmingly popular. I think most Americans would agree we should take care of our veterans, especially with health care, for what they have done overseas. Now, of course, the other story of the week is the economy and the R word that's being thrown around, recession. And if you're in the Republican news outlets, there's a recession. Sound the alarm. Red alert. It's terrible. Recession is on. And if you're in the Democrat news outlets, what recession? It's not really a recession. No big deal. But here's the reality of it. The National Bureau of Economic Research, which actually sets the definition for recession that it's measured by, has that listed as a decline in the economy over a long period of time. I know some of the news outlets are trying to spin with this 2 consecutive quarters. That's not necessarily how it works. And the reality is that, yes, there have been 2 quarters with negative growth. And in fact, the first quarter, it was around 2%. This last quarter was 0.9%. Generally, historically in the past, recessions start with anywhere from 5 to 8% losses that are going on, and that's subsequent back to back. So in a couple of quarters, you can lose 15 or more percent of the economy. We all, of course, lived through the historic one in 2020, where in one quarter, 32% of it was lost, and then another 14% later. So we've had some horrible history with this recently. Is there a recession? Not really by the definition. And even if there was, it's not necessarily deep, and we're going into the back half of the year where a lot of spending happens. So it's not necessarily the end of the world. And that's the recap for today.